So I saw two movies today. I haven't done my Noirvember one yet. I'm going to do that later tonight. But I watched two movies in theaters, and I'm going to do two separate reviews because I don't want them mixed together, basically. So the first one I saw was a movie I really, really enjoyed. It was Christine, which is directed by Antonio Campos and written by Craig Shilowich, and it tells the relative. It is based on the true story of Christine Chubbuck, who committed suicide on live television, and it's the weeks leading up to her death. It's slightly uh, fictionalized, but mostly based on the truth. And I know that I bitch a lot about uh, characters, female characters written by men, because most of the time I feel like they're missing something. And this is one of those cases of the opposite, where I really felt like they understood this woman. I felt like, I don't know if it's because of the way it was written or directed, or if it was because Rebecca Hall really brought so much to the role that I was like, I feel this. So sort of the plot, if you don't know the story of Christine Chubbuck, she was a reporter in Florida, Sarasota, Florida, who was about to turn, I think that in real life she was 28, but in this they're making it her 30th birthday. And she lives with her mother. She has mental issues. She's trying to tell human interest stories, and it's the beginning of If It Bleeds, It Leads type journalism, which is where we are now, pretty much. But this was the beginning of news journalism turning into that, and much like Network, which was based a few years later. She also discovered that she had a cyst on her uterus, and so she was going to have one of her ovaries taken out. And so she's got all this stress going on. And on top of all of this, the depression, the job change, finding out maybe she's never going to have babies, she also is hitting late 20s and is a virgin. So there's a lot of things piling on here. And she's also sort of a person who's hard to approach. And there's this great line in it where she says, maybe you just don't know how to approach me. And I thought that was super insightful, because I think most people can be reached and can be talked to if you'll learn them and learn how to approach them. That's how animal trainers learn how to approach animals. You have to learn how they are and how they like to be approached before you can really approach them. And humans are animals, so it's the same sort of idea. As someone who is 30 and has mental issues, and I love my job, so I don't have that. And this is a big confession, I also know a little thing or two about being a 30-year-old virgin. So this movie kind of, when I was reading about it, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna go places. And it went places, and I felt it, and it felt real, and I really related to this character, and I related to her struggle, and I related to her loss of hope. And what is so wonderful about the film is that everyone sort of tries to reach out to her, but when she cuts them off, they don't keep trying. And I think that's the most important thing to learn, is that you have to keep trying to reach people. You have to keep trying when you know someone's hurting. And I don't think, at least in the case of the way they've shown it in this film, I don't think people tried hard enough. I don't think they kept taking no for an answer instead of going forward and really being there for her in the ways that she needed it. And that's the way it is for a lot of people. I like that it didn't demonize the fact that she was suicidal. It didn't demonize anything about her, and it really just made you see who she was and why she came to this realization in her life. Another thing about the film, and that it gets correctly, is that in her statement she says that she committed suicide live on television, but in her written statement that she read before she did it, she says that this is the first attempted suicide. And what people have speculated is that she didn't actually think she'd kill herself. She ended up dying, but that they kind of leave that up to you to decide. Did she really want to kill herself? Did she really just want, like, to show that this, if it bleeds, it leads, is a terrible thing? Like, you don't really know. I just know that I loved this film. There's another part of it that I really enjoyed was when she's talking. She often corrects people when they say one thing but they mean something else. And as someone who does that often, I really enjoyed that. She talks about how communication is so important, and that words are important, and that you need to say what you mean, and you need to know what you mean when you say things. And there's so much miscommunication and so much misunderstanding of what people are saying and or trying to say. And that's, I think, the nature of humanity, is to try to actually say what you mean, understand what it is you're saying. And I feel like we're getting worse and worse in our ability to do that. Lastly, this movie was very timely in that, and this is a huge, huge, huge spoiler. So, yeah, huger than the fact that she killed herself, because if you don't know that, why are you watching this movie? At one point, she and her coworker, who's a man, are trying to vie for basically the same job at a bigger market station, and she finds out that he won, even though everyone knows he's not as smart as her. He knows he's not as smart as her. He's trying to pep her up by saying, like, if some dumb ex jock can get this job, then it means you can do anything. But what she sees and what we see and what we know because of this week, an unqualified man will almost always succeed higher than the most qualified woman. And we're still struggling there, and this is still what's happening. And what is so hilarious is that this movie was finished and completed long before any of this, and yet here we go. So, it's nice to see that 40 years can go by and things do not change. So I'm sorry if I spoiled history for you about Christine Chubbuck. But this is a fucking great film. Rebecca Hall gives an amazing performance, and you should check it out. It is probably in limited release all over the place. It came out about a month ago, so it's playing all over the place. You should find it. It's good. It's a good film.